So there's an issue happening in society that probably most people are aware of, and the issue of kids and the disconnect that they have from nature, that the separation that's happened with devices, with television 24/7. And as Shakespeare said, one touch of nature makes the whole world kin. And there is a whole world of important things in the idea of this disconnect with kids from nature. And what I'd ask you to do to start is just take yourself back to the last day of school when you were a kid, and think of that last hour of school or the last 5 minutes, and you're waiting for the bell to ring, and what was it that you were looking forward to? Were you looking forward to going home and watching TV? Probably not. It was that whole idea of freedom from teachers, freedom from parents, time to explore the world, broaden your horizons with your friends. And I think for many people, usually people who work within the environmental field or have an interest in that, are people that may have had that opportunity to, as we call it here at RBG, fall in love with nature when you were a kid. So if you can think back to the places that you played, or where you were your happiest, where you would go if you were upset or to think about things, it probably wasn't indoors in front of a screen. How many people, when you do think of that, think of someplace outside? A cottage, camping, being a vacant lot or a wood lot at the end of the street, wherever. For many of us of an age, you can go back and you can reach back into that space in your heart, and that can stay with you for the rest of your life. But kids' lives are very different nowadays, and we put these devices into their hands, and it's like the Pandora's box, all of the good that can come from the internet, but all of the complete addiction that kids exhibit with it. And we get this very sad thing of kids that don't play outside, kids that say, no, I want to be inside because that's where I'm comfortable. And where they're spending 53 to 57 hours a week in front of a screen. So more than a full-time job with a lot of overtime thrown in. And they may be active outdoors, but usually that's organized sport, something that's parent mediated. And where they don't know, over 50% of kids they don't know what a daddy longlegs is. They may have seen them before, they can't put a name to it. But they sure can name every Pokemon character. So they have the innate human ability to recognize minute differences between things, identify them, and in days past that would have been identifying foods that you were eating, things that you were searching for or harvesting. Now it goes into to media characters. They're very sedentary. We see health impacts, so obesity, attention deficit hyperactivity issues, and mental health issues. So complete change in the landscape of childhood is creating a lot of health issues. Chauffeured around, they're inactive, they stare at fixed distance screens, and they're inside, so it's even affecting vision. Myopia rates are on the rise as well. Kids don't have spatial capacity that we might have because they're driven around all the time, and oftentimes with screens that they're watching in a car. So once they get to be 16, they can't find their way out of a paper bag. They're completely, I drive my kids' friends home, and you get to the end of their block and say, well, what way do I turn? I don't know. They just don't have that thing that you learn by walking to school, by walking longer distances with your friends as you got older, by riding a bike around. That sense of community and understanding of community and the people that are in it, your understanding of place is rooted in the way that humans used to grow up. And their what they call range of play has shrunk. This is a study that was done in Sheffield, England, 4 generations of one family living in the same community. And you can see the shrinking circles of, move all my stuff out of here. The great-grandfather would walk 6 miles to go fishing, and the great-grandson can go to the end of his street. And there's similar studies in Canada showing the same sort of impact. And part of it's stranger danger. The media makes us sure that there's a boogeyman around every corner waiting to abduct children, when in reality Abductions may have gone up, but that's abductions by family members and people that kids know, not by strangers. And the whole, whether it's West Nile or the sun or Lyme disease, the things that come up as, they get blown out of proportion, not that they're not serious issues, but precautions can be taken, things can be managed, and all of it just tends to create barriers that keep kids away, as does our development practice and the kind of planning that we've had over the last 3 or 4 decades with sprawl, requiring more cars, more traffic, more nature, or more barriers between finding nature. It's not just at the end of the street anymore. And it's especially true for kids that are newcomers to this country, where all of these barriers exist for kids whose parents and grandparents have grown up here. For people who are new, there are many more barriers that get in between that. So we have a whole generation of kids that has grown up already without that contact that is a fundamental part of human development. Since the dawn of time, human brains, bodies, and souls have grown up outdoors and been shaped by nature. And the research is showing what kind of impact it has on our brains and our bodies. And so we're looking at, how do we get rid of things like this? The idea of kids in the environment, are they compatible? I mean, they should be inseparable, but we've managed in a generation to separate them. And 10 years ago, a book came out, Last Child in the Woods. How many people may have read this or familiar with it? A few. So a fellow in the States, Richard Louv, wrote this book, and it's been changing things around the world. He has started a movement that has swept right around the world. There are organizations and groups of organizations on every continent working on this. And he characterized the term nature deficit disorder. So not actually a medical diagnosis, but something that describes a whole bunch of symptoms that are related to this issue that can be reversed with looking a little bit more about how do we build nature back into kids' lives. Research shows, being near a tree, touching a tree, even a simple thing like seeing a view of a tree outside of your apartment in an inner city neighborhood can completely change outcomes for people. The idea of, in education, outdoor inquiry, much more stimulating. Kids' test scores increase in schools that use outdoor teaching as a fundamental part of their curriculum delivery. Putting kids in touch with where food comes from, having kids involved with gardening programs where they're seeing that things don't just come from grocery stores, and having them experiment with building things, with risk management. A big issue in our society where kids have spent their whole lives inside, they've never learned to manage risk. They're never trying, building a tree house and finding that doesn't work, I'll fall out of the tree. Or if I jump from here, it's going to hurt. Or, if I walk on uneven ground, it's going to feel okay. We get kids out here for school programs who've never walked off of hard surfaces. They have a hard time walking across a lawn. So, trails, the Bruce Trail, they're very clumsy on it, not that agile thing. And it's just a thing of not being exposed to that as they're growing up. So playing outdoors teaches kids, usually when they're in groups, sort of group management, negotiation, empathy, all these things where we look at what kind of characteristics do we want in adults taking their place in society. A lot of that happens in a kind of informal play when kids are playing together outdoors. So where can it happen for kids nowadays? There is a movement in some school boards, Halton District School Board, for example, every single school is getting an outdoor classroom. Simcoe County District School Board up north of Barrie, that area, they're doing the same thing. So they're creating naturalized areas and schoolyards that bring nature to kids. It happens when adults take kids camping or spend time with kids, try and engage them in outdoor activity. Let's go hiking on the weekend. Let's not just sit around and play on the computer all day. So Rachel Carson, who wrote Silent Spring, also wrote a lovely book called The Sense of Wonder. It was published after her death. But she talks about the importance of adults that will take kids outside and role model positive behavior. And research in the States has looked at that idea for people who have gone on and become committed environmentalists and have close connection to the environment as adults, usually started as children and started by having that role modeled by somebody else. There was an adult that took them outside and did fun things with them. So at Royal Botanical Gardens, I started looking at this issue soon after the book came out and seeing my own case. I'm the head of education here. I've been here for over 30 years and watching the change in children coming through programs. I've run our junior naturalist program for over 30 years. And looking at, kids are really changing. I mean, I've been here over 30 years. I'm well on into middle life. I can walk up the hills when I take the junior nats out better than the kids can. So we invited organizations from all across Ontario, national, regional, local, and provincial organizations together in 2008 to say, okay, this is an issue. We're all seeing the impacts, and we all have an idea of what this might mean down the road. What can we do about it? So we agreed that we would work together and form an organization, which we headquarter here at RBG, the Back to Nature Network, with the idea of kids need to have access to nature, they need to have it within walking distance of their home, and they need to have the ability to be out in nature on a daily basis to get the benefits of it. And so we've convened this group that from all these different sectors. So there are huge future impacts. This issue has the potential to bring the healthcare system to its knees. We've got kids now from inactivity who have the vast cardiovascular systems of 45-year-olds, and they're only 14 or 15. We've got osteoporosis issues looming because of inactivity in young girls without that kind of active outdoor play. We have issues where we can, if we incorporate more of this in kids' lives, we can improve their learning capacity, their ability to focus. And as adults, we can use that too. You can get out and take a nature break and refocus yourself as well each day. We all know, gardening, hiking, things like that, we do them because they make us feel good. So we've got over 80 organizations from these different sectors. If municipalities can't manage park systems in a way that builds nature into them and makes it accessible, if the school boards can't do that, we have to have a space for everybody. So we're in a second round of funding from the Ontario Trillium Foundation with the network. We're working with school boards across the province to train trainers who will train teachers in how to work with the kids in their care each day outdoors. We're also going to be working with ECE educators in daycare centers. We're starting off with a pilot project in Halton, and we'll be working with them, with Halton Region, through all of their daycare facilities. And we were a lead partner in Ontario's Outdoor Charter for Children. So this is a thing that came out last year. Basically says being outdoors, playing outdoors, growing up outdoors is a fundamental right of children in Ontario, and lists a number of activities that all kids should, by the time they're 12, have had the opportunity to participate in. And that can be adopted by municipalities or adopted by school boards. At RBG, we've been doing programming for children that connects them with the natural world since 1947 through our gardening programs. Our school programs, we have extensive day camp program in the summer, 6 camps run each week between this building and our Nature Interpretive Center, where the kids are outdoors each day. And we do programming for adults as well, but we run kids clubs, gardening clubs, nature clubs, and provide those sort of hands-on opportunities here. And we work with this idea of, kids need to learn, they need to be exposed to this, they need to learn to love it. And the reason is, if we want environmental stewards in the future who are going to care about something, if you haven't been exposed to it and you don't learn to love it, you're not really going to be connected and care about it in the future. So it's a huge issue, a lot of stuff happening in our area around this, and hopefully soon, as we grow the network, across the province. So, thanks very much.